Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Jason.
Hello, everyone.
And Stoney.
Hello.
How's it going?
Well, it's I've had a very busy weekend.
Yeah.
It's Labor Day.
Oh, yeah, right.
So my girlfriend just left to head back home, and so we had a good time cleaning out my pantry.
Mm-hmm.
So you put her to work when she comes in?
Well, she put me to work. Actually, she really kind of restricted on what she can do right now, but she was able to help me do some things that I've been wanting to do. That finally, that I said, this is a perfect opportunity. Let's do this.
Encouraging nudge to push you forward.
So yeah, she gave me that little bit of nudge, and she's giving me some nudges on some other things. So. I got some other areas in my house I need to clean out. And I've been needing to do this.
Oh, yeah.
But I put stuff upstairs, and I just have stuff.
Yeah.
That
we've all been there. We have that closet we need to clean out or whatever.
It's amazing the amount of things that we accumulate and we think we need.
Right.
That we really don't need at all. And I don't have a big house, so I don't have room to have a lot of stuff.
And it makes it that much more apparent that there's
exactly. It's time to because I'm fixing to do some renovation upstairs, and I have to get all that cleaned up and cleared out before I can even start. You know, I've got some other issues going on with I think I got a water leak coming in from the roof. I'm in a battle right now with my roof with insurance. Hopefully that will turn out in my favor. But yeah, so it was a busy weekend while she was here, and watched the LSU football game.
There you go.
And that didn't turn out the way I expected, but just the way it goes. But other than that, I've had a good weekend.
Can I share a crazy experience that I was waiting for the podcast to tell you guys about?
Yeah.
It happened last night, like midnight. I heard some commotion out back at my house. I have like an elevated house, and specifically the front porch doesn't have like a, what do they call that? Like a skirt around it, or like a... Skirting, whatever, to kind of keep critters from underneath the porch itself. And so every now and then, like there's like a possum that kind of will get around there, or like a raccoon. I've noticed kind of will late at night will kind of just be like passing through or whatever. And specifically, I want to say it was a couple nights ago, I noticed there was a possum in the backyard, a pretty substantial like backyard area. So obviously, like late at night, sometimes I mow the yard, like it's like or I have someone come and keep up the yard. That's like the front yard, the sides, and then like the immediate backyard. There's a lot of area behind all that. It's like 3 acres, and he comes through with like a big old bush hog and like cleans it up occasionally. So it just less work, and I don't got to pay as much. So out there, as you can imagine, sometimes there's rabbits, sometimes there's possums or whatever. Critters because there's also woods out there.
Any cryptids?
Nothing from what there was one time there was a donkey that sounded like it was possessed, but it was just a donkey way out there. And I think it's like a neighbor far off that had a donkey. But as we were like roasting marshmallows one night, or on like the fire, I heard that donkey from way off in the distance in the woods, and I was like, "There's definitely a possessed monster out there." Nevertheless, this recent event. Again, I noticed there's like a possum around in the yard. And a lot of times I'll shoot away from the house if I don't get too close to them, but I'm like, hey,
Possums are good, actually.
Right. But I was like, or especially like raccoons, at least I try to like get them away so that way like they don't get the trash cans. They don't feel super welcomed here, in the immediate house, the woods around it, whatever. I heard a commotion, and it wasn't just like little critters moving around. It was like something bigger, and it was like how do you describe it? It was like an aggressive rustling, and then it sounded like a fight. And I was like, and it was like big enough where like I could hear it like kind of like rumbling the floorboards a little bit. I was like,
2 bobcats.
and I was like, what in the hell's going on? So I step outside with my big bright flashlight. I'm on the back porch. And then I see a possum like scurry away. And he's for his life. And then there's a coyote.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never seen a coyote in this neck of the woods around here. But again, I was able to scare it off. But I got nervous because I was like, I thought like coyotes usually will stay in a pack. So I stayed outside for a little bit because I was like, I don't know if there's like more than one. I don't know what's going on. I have an outside cat, and I was like trying to make sure the cat was okay because I was like, I don't want, the cat to get. I was like,
those coyotes.
I know
they've adapted quite well. I mean, they've adapted quite well to living in urban environments.
Right, and I
really
had no idea, but and he ran. I mean, he ran so quick, but and it was dark, and I don't. I mean, it was a really weird situation because I was like, oh man,
they're roaming the neighborhoods.
Yeah,
oh yeah, they've got them around where I live. I mean, just walking down the street.
That's wild.
Like 2-3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that was last night, and I got kind of scared because I was like, I thought there was going to be just a whole
coyote ran off.
Yeah. He ran off into the woods, and I proceeded to like shine my light in that direction, and I said, I stayed out there because I was nervous it was going to be like a pack of them, like multiple, but I think it was just the one, and he ran off to I guess the rest of his posse or something. But then I stayed out there for a pretty good amount of time, never came back. And I guess I must have scared him off or something. But
keep taking, we keep taking away their environments, and they're trying to survive like any other living creature would. And so
anyways, I just thought it was interesting, and I was like, it startled me because I was like, okay, I was expecting to see like another raccoon or a couple of small animals, and I saw this small wolf-like creature run around. I was like, okay. I'm a little more on edge now. So, anyways.
Fun.
Stoney, how was your weekend?
It was all right. Went and had dinner Saturday night with some friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was good.
Nice.
Miranda and I enjoyed it.
Yep.
I can't taste or smell the food, but apparently everybody else.
Is that not getting any better?
Not at all.
Dang.
Nothing.
That's unfortunate.
Nothing.
It's not gotten any better, huh?
It's no improvement. Nothing. The memory is getting worse. The balance is at times worse, and the smell and the taste is nothing. I eat for function, and I eat to be with people.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Well, you think about it in one way. I know this is a terrible way of but you're trying to, I guess, make the best out of a terrible situation. And it really would apply to all of us. If we strictly ate from a utilitarian standpoint and not from taste, we'd probably be a lot healthier.
Well, I did lose almost 100 pounds.
I was saying, I know,
I do not recommend this weight loss program.
No, that's a terrible situation you're in, Stoney. I wish it wouldn't have been that way, but unfortunately, that tragic day.
Yep.
So.
All right.
But, real quick, I brought up this topic because I thought it would be fun.
Okay.
And interesting. We've all talked about it at times. We've all read about it in movies and books and magazines.
Discussed it on the show.
Yes, plenty of times. And but we're going to talk today about time travel.
So, my favorite thing of time travel was a 1995 fight with Mike Tyson. And there's a picture of the fight. He's punching on somebody, and there's somebody with a smartphone taking video or pictures of a Mike Tyson fight. Yeah, smartphones weren't out yet.
Right.
Was it somebody from the future coming back to see Mike Tyson fight. And there's actually another photograph of a picture in the 1940s of another boxing match with somebody with some type of a phone in their hand also. I could not find that picture. But I found the one with Mike Tyson in it, and it looks like a modern day smartphone with a flash and everything on it. It's fascinating.
Well, I mean, it could be that smartphones actually did exist at that time. It was just in the hands of just maybe just a few select people. Could be. But I mean, I this concept of time travel, the movie that really I thought did a really good job with it was Interstellar,
right?
With Matthew McConaughey. Very interesting because it did bring in the concept of how intense gravitational forces affect time
dilation,
and all that. So, it's right now there is no time machines that we know of.
Right. I think from what
maybe
little bit of research I was able to do and watching some videos and seeing some perspectives, the consensus that I've got so far is like the universe and how it is constructed makes it basically impossible to go back in time, but jumping forward in time is a possibility.
Well, we actually are time travelers.
Exactly.
We're doing that every day. Every day we jump forward in time.
But I'm talking about like even more so, specifically like the situation with Interstellar and dealing with time dilation and how
intense gravity
and what space-time does.
Right.
How you can move in a physical space, you can move in a three-dimensional space, and you can move like in a time space. And so if you're moving so fast in this three-dimensional space, of course, time relative to you is
you'd have
slower.
to move at the speed of light.
Right. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it that like makes it to where like you're saying, intense gravitational situations can make time move slower to you but faster to everyone else around you. So by the time you actually do get back to your home planet,
it could
time,
be like decades have passed,
which
and it's only been
may I say
it's
is
a little
like
while for you.
That's one of those, I don't want to say it's a fear, but it's like an irrational, like I don't like that. The idea of like time I think I've even talked about it on this podcast, maybe. If not, here we go again. The idea of like traveling to like Mars, and then I don't think Mars is far enough to actually affect it, but like coming back and then like so much time has passed and like the world is not what you thought it was, for some reason giving this uneasy feeling of like, I don't like that.
Well, think about this. Hear me out on this. We have a couple of months for everybody on the planet to get ape or monkey suits. And the two astronauts that are trapped out in space, when they come back to the Earth in January, all of a sudden, now we're all Planet of the Apes. That was time travel.
Yeah,
it was. They got caught up in a time warp or something in space. And
but that would be the greatest practical joke of all time. Just everybody wearing ape suits when they come back.
Well, I mean, Einstein, you know, he did theoretically predict that time travel is possible. I have a few little notes here I wrote down because there's no way I would have remembered any of this stuff.
Welcome to my world.
But Albert Einstein's calculation suggests it's possible for an object in our universe to travel through space-time in a circular direction, eventually ending up at the point of its journey where it began before. I think they mentioned about a grandfather paradox. Did y'all read about the grandfather paradox?
I've heard of it, but I don't think I looked into it.
It's pretty neat. It's basically that there's really no way to change the future if you could go back in time. Because what would happen, there would be circumstances that would... It's sort of like the universe would fix itself to prevent you from actually altering time.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that they could possibly bring in these ideas of alternate timelines and parallel universes. And I think there's some of these real smart people talk about string theory.
Right.
So, but this concept of this grandfather it's like the universe was like, I'm gonna go back in time to say, kill my granddaddy. That would, in essence, prevent me from becoming into existence. But what happened? Something would happen where your grandmother would still become pregnant with your parents, or type of deal. Yeah. It's kind of a weird way of looking at it, but it's like the way the universe kind of fixes itself, which is kind of interesting.
Right.
So
the research I was doing on it, they talking about being able to, like, there's something that can move faster than light. There's a hypothetical, it's all hypothetical, particle that they think moves faster than light. It's called a tachyon. Mm-hmm. They think that it moves so much faster than light that it actually it's going backwards in time. If it is potentially perceived, it is actually moving backwards in time. I don't know how that would actually work because I'm not a physicist, so I don't even know how to describe that. But I thought it was so interesting that the videos and the stuff that I was researching on it, they were saying that the reason why they think it's impossible to go back in time is because I think the tachyon can move, hypothetically again, can move faster than light because that's where it's started off that way. Whereas I think even if you take all the energy in the universe to try and get us to go faster than light, there's like a barrier. We can't, because we start off less than the speed of light, that's our threshold. We can't go faster than light. And that's the thing. Like, to be able to go back in time, we'd have to probably go faster than light to make that happen. And I was like, that's really interesting that, like, there's some, like, it also kind of reinforces some of my faith beliefs as well, potentially, of like, there are some like fundamental rules of the universe that like it can't really be unbroken. And I feel like that's one of those things, like, potentially, like, I'm not saying this is the purpose of it, but like, I feel like God set the world in motion and was like, time only moves in one direction. And even with all of our knowledge, or at least right now in this world, again, history could make a fool out of me, but you look at it and it's like, there are some hard cutoffs in the world, and right now, faster than speed of light is not possible from what we know of it, like, or getting us past that level. So it's like that's just a hard stop in the universe. As time only moves in one direction, which is interesting and kind of, I don't know.
Well, I'm telling you, I was looking up some of these things about time travel, and I pulled up this report under Watch Mojo.
Oh, yeah.
Time travel experiments at the CIA.
Uh-oh.
And
because those always end well.
Yeah, I mean, it says June 9th, 1983, one Wayne M. McDonnell, then lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army, compiled and sent an exhaustive report to the U.S. Army Operational Group, all to do with all manner of mystical, seemingly fantastical things. The nature of consciousness, which to me now that opens up something completely different. Out-of-body experiences and an apparently valid means of time travel. All of the above and more were covered in a now declassified document titled Analysis and Assessment of the Gateway Process. Now perhaps you've heard rumors surrounding governments and intelligence agencies dabbling in this kind of stuff. It's only hearsay, but there are long and specific details released by the CIA of a technique that seemingly could change everything. At the heart of the McDonald's report is a group later known as the Monroe Institute. It was founded by Robert Monroe as Monroe Industries in 1962, before a name change and restructuring to Institute in 1985. It was primarily interested in research and experiments surrounding consciousness and out-of-body experiences, or OBEs. It was actually set up by Robert Monroe largely in response to OBEs that he himself had. More specifically, the CIA document focuses on something called the Hemi-Sync method, a trademark term short for hemispherical synchronization. That is a phenomenon where the waves in both sides of the brain, the left and the right, are synced together to the same level. According to the Monroe Institute, hemisync can be achieved via carefully cultivated binaural beats, which are sounds created by playing separate beats into the left and right ears of a person. The binaural beats then serve to sharpen brain function, and when it's done right, to sharpen function to the point that one might achieve an altered state of consciousness.
You know, that's one of the technologies that I'm actually trying right now for this cognitive stuff is a headset mask and everything, and it uses binaural beats on it. And it uses dual voice, single voice. It uses all kind of stuff to try to push your brain to other things. My brain just is not willing right now, but it's some fascinating technology.
Yeah.
It also uses, and we've talked about this on the show a lot, frequency, light, sound, all of the above, and it uses all of the above. It uses light frequency, sound frequencies, things. So,
well, we've talked about frequencies before, and I believe there's probably a lot of untapped potential there. I think there's too much smoke there for not to be. There is some realness to this that, you know, we were all like a big battery and we're all attuned to certain things. And, you know, wow, you think if they could tap into that, how that might change things. I mean, I can't imagine the...
We talked about on a previous show in the early times of the show of a lot of the kinetic powers that we have couldn't really get us to light speed.
Right.
But what if conscious power could? What if our brain becomes so powerful that it could do that for us? We only use 10 to 12% of our brain at this point.
Well, if I mean, I can kind of see if the Earth is emitting energy, we're emitting energy, the plants, everything, the whole creation is emitting energy, and somehow you can tap into that wavelength.
That's right.
And achieve a
that would be conscious power.
Right. You would think, you know, sometimes I wonder, and I'm kind of going back to the idea of faith.
Yeah.
And you know, Christ in the Bible mentions many times, if you had the faith of a mustard seed, you could tell this mountain to get up and walk over there, and it would.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's not a frequency.
Okay.
Think about that. Think about that.
The God
That's
frequency.
A frequency. The God frequency.
They talk about the God frequency all the time and all of this stuff.
If you could do that and somehow tap into that, somehow into that level of reality where you can alter reality, then what is time? What is time then? I mean, I don't know.
Time is still a human constraint, number one.
It just kind of made me think about that. I don't know why it hit my brain like that, but it just like, I wonder if, I mean...
You could definitely take it in a literal sense like that. Yeah,
I mean, I'm just kind of wondering. I mean,
I've always understood it more as like I don't want to say metaphorical, but like in the sense of like, you know, speaking in physical terms, like, you know, if you have faith this small, you could do something as big as this.
Right. And that's true.
But you very well could be, like I said, there could be something that...
I mean, was you know, I mean, that kind of gets into interpretation of the Bible and what exactly is he talking about literally and what is he talking about figuratively and stuff like that. But I don't know, it just kind of made me think. Thought about that. But this kind of continuing on with what I was reading earlier. It says McDonald dictates the next part of his report to explaining theories and models for how the Earth and the wider universe really function, in line with the hemisync state. he writes how a properly hemispherically synchronized brain should ultimately tap into the same vibrating levels of the energy and matter of its surrounding environment, in our case, of the Earth. Reality is explained as extraordinarily complex system of energy fields, and later the universe as one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity. For the potential of time travel in particular, though, the apparent suggestion is that the hemisync gives access to the wider fields dictating Earth itself. If a participant can delve deeper and deeper into this same state, then it's suggested that they could gain access to the so-called absolute state of infinite energy. And here, or as close to here as possible, so the report implies, is when the mastery of time might be achievable.
Wow.
It is explained that if one theorizes the wider universe to have the shape of an immense self-contained spiral, aka the torus, then the past, present, and future should all be knowable because they all actually exist simultaneously.
Wow.
Use hemisync to better tap into the energies and complexity of the universe. Then, and one interpretation says that you should be able to travel in time. McDonald summarizes by writing, the tentative conclusion to be drawn is that the out-of-body state may be regarded as an extremely effective way of accelerating the process of enhancing consciousness and of interfacing with dimensions beyond time-space. I mean, this is real stuff. I mean, this is a lieutenant colonel in the Army. This is the Army writing this stuff up.
Right.
I mean, these are not just some kids in a basement somewhere doing this. This is real live military stuff. Why are they doing this? Why are they looking at this? If time travel is not possible, well, why would you waste the money?
Well, I mean, it's also the 80s, so I think there's a lot of... Wasn't there a lot of tests with, like, drugs and stuff, too?
That was more in the 70s.
70s? Okay, yeah. Understanding how humans function.
I'm sure it's still going on.
Probably.
But
I was just saying, like, more so in that aspect, too, of, like, if people take drugs and claim to, like, unlock parts of their brain and see the world through new eyes. A part of me always been curious about that, too. Not enough to actually partake in the drugs itself, but like how much of that is just you know.
Well, genuine travel to the past and then to the future are pitched as among the highest and most difficult aspects of the technique. But McDonald says that advocates insist that both are possible given enough time, dedication, and discipline. In the last section of his paper, he writes, there is a sound, rational basis in terms of physical science parameters for considering Gateway to be plausible in terms of its essential objectives. So, yeah.
Does anybody remember John Titor?
No.
You know, I read something about John, or I may not have read, but I think I listened to a podcast that mentioned him.
He claimed that he was from 2036, and he appeared kind of in the early onset of the internet in the early 2000s. And basically, he started posting stuff, I guess it was the end of 2000, when just many things were going to happen. He claimed to be sent back to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer, which I guess could be seemingly mundane task for all of us.
Yeah.
But he explained that it was crucial to debugging legacy computer systems that still existed in his time. This very specific detail about the IBM 5100, which was not widely known at the time, actually led some credibility to his story because it could still be used for those systems.
Yeah.
And he said he described his time machine, which he put in a 1967 Chevy Corvette.
Wow.
So, and he kind of led to how some of this worked and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But some of his predictions were a civil war.
Yeah.
And some things happening in America, that the country would have been divided into 5 distinct regions by 2015. And devastating World War III in 2015 also, nuclear exchanges, and some of this stuff didn't happen.
Right.
Some of the things he said did happen, some of the things didn't. So, but he was kind of a fascinating figure early on to the internet age. And a lot of people were just going crazy by this because some of the stuff he said made some sense. Some of it obviously didn't come true too. So,
right.
But he was an internet time traveler.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've got. Did you read about the year 5000 photo?
No.
I came across something like that. Yeah.
It's in 2018, a man named Edward claimed to have traveled to the year 5000 and returned with photographic proof. Edward asserts that in 2004 he was selected for a secret project which sent him into the future. According to him, the photo he shared of an underwater city is actually Los Angeles 3,000 years in the future.
Wow.
By that time, the world will have been flooded by global warming, and mankind will survive by living in floating cities, such as the one from which he took the photo. Whether it's true or not, we just hope the future isn't like Waterworld.
Yep. That's crazy.
Well, I mean,
you see, that's kind of been debunked a couple of times, because if you take a regular glass and you fill it up with ice and then you fill it up with water to the very top, you're going to have a little bit of ice sticking out of it.
Right.
What happens when the ice melts?
What's all is water displacement?
No.
Nothing.
It's still going to be full to the top, and nothing's going to run over. So all the ice can melt. All these icebergs can melt. The water's not going to go up any.
What I'm talking about is ice. Like the ice is displacing the water.
Yeah.
If you take that same amount and then remove the ice, the water level goes down.
But
the second you put the water back in it, the water goes back up. So whenever it melts, it's just still.
But when it becomes ice, it grows. So that's why your pipes burst. Yeah. But when it goes back to water, it's actually smaller, and so it's actually not going to flood everything if it turns into water again. So I have some problems with some of this.
Well, I mean, how would then that fly in the face of sea levels being 400 feet higher than they were 12,000 years ago?
Maybe the water went somewhere. Maybe one of these alien or future technologies came and took our water. Maybe it leaked into the core and turns into steam and dissipates. But, at one point, 15,000 years ago, Louisiana was covered in ice.
Not 15,000.
Yes, 15,000 years ago.
No, because the ice caps reached about where Missouri is today. Everything north of that was covered in ice. Actually, Louisiana mostly was under shallow sea. That's the reason why it was so rich in oil. It's because all that animal life, died, hit the bottom, and
became oil later.
But I mean, if you look at, you can look at a Google, pull it up on your phone and look at Google. You can see the ancient shoreline that one time was exposed. There was a lot more land than there is now.
Right.
That's where some of these tales of massive floods wiping out.
Yeah.
But then you also just kind of answered your own question. As these plates are moving up and down and side to side and pushing this and moving that, maybe it's just displaced the water differently.
Well, now I will say this, that I do believe I believe the term they use is isostatic pressure, which was what they're saying is when the ice was at its peak 25,000 years ago, there's 3 mile high ice caps.
Right.
excuse me, I can't even imagine that kind of ice.
Yeah.
But what's happening, it places that pressure, and it sort of like lifts the plate, so to speak. So there's more land now over here because the way it is. And what happens is as the ice melted, it gets lighter, the plate starts going and starts sinking back into the ocean. That's also been postulated that could have happened too.
Right.
While vast stretches of land disappeared, like Doggerland.
Yeah.
Doggerland's a very interesting topic, but
I understand the whole like the political discussion and all the other stuff with climate change and all that stuff, but I don't know all the debating points. I don't know all the frustrations, and I don't know all the science about it all. The one thing I can say is like the past 3 years, the summers have been so much hotter and longer than they ever have been. And that's like a very real thing to me, where I'm like, I may not understand all the other stuff, but like one thing I've noticed this year, even more so, like having an excessive heat warning for like almost 2 months straight. And like that's a very real thing for me, where it's like now this may just be like a symptom of something. This may just be like a season where, we're going to probably end up, it may shift around or something, the heat on everything, but it's very like concerning for me, where I was like, if it's going to get hotter than this next summer, like, because last year was atrocious and this year was also kind of bad. It's like, man, that's crazy to think that.
Well, this is a perfect example. I personally think they overanalyze the weather nowadays. I really do. I have found they're more wrong now than they seem like they were when I was
really.
Growing up.
Well, the Farmer's Almanac is actually more accurate than today's weathermen.
I think they have so much equipment, have so much data that they overthink it. I really do. Like, perfect example. This past week, they predicted that all kind of rain was going to fall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In our area.
Torrential rain.
And guess what?
Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like.
No, you got to remember this, okay? Being a weatherman is a 6-figure salary position that you can be wrong 90% of the time and still keep your job. I really went into the wrong field.
Well, because I think everybody knows deep down that you can't really ultimately predict the weather. You can go off models. You can look at how you think the model will play out.
Yeah.
But beyond that, ultimately, Mother Nature is going to do what Mother Nature is going to do.
But technically, since this is a subject of time travel and future, they're trying to predict the future. And it's not working.
They are trying to predict the future, which I think is crazy. I don't think you have enough data to do that, but I mean, you can.
I mean, there's some things you can see. There's a high front, which kind of can push it to the side a little bit. There's things you can determine, but just the amount of rains and things like that they're saying, they got no clue. But you can still get paid.
What about this one? Y'all probably heard of this one, the Montauk Project.
I've heard of that.
Oh, that's a good one. It says here, was Stranger Things inspired by real-life time travel experiments?
Yep.
Sort of. The hit Netflix show was influenced by the book The Montauk Project, Experiments in Time by Preston B. Nichols and Peter Moon. In the book, Nichols shares his alleged experiences at Camp Hero in Montauk, where experiments on children with psychic powers supposedly opened portals to other dimensions and times. The book also describes the tale of Al Bielek. Now, I have read about him, who claims to have been part of the famous Philadelphia experiment, which everyone knows about that, in the 1940s, which supposedly teleported the battleship USS Eldridge.
The Philadelphia experiment. Yes.
Yes. There's a lot of things.
Yeah, that's a fascinating story in itself right there.
I believe that happened.
I do too.
I do believe that they unfortunately stumbled upon something.
Yeah.
And the stories of what happened to some of those people on that ship.
Yeah.
People melded into the ship, and they fused with the ship on a molecular level. I mean, I can't even imagine
That's dreadful.
What that would have been like. I'd like to learn a little bit more about Montauk, and especially Al Bielek. Al Bielek was a good story. I listened to a podcast on him, which was really good.
I was looking at something about, and we always talk about this on the show, about Hollywood, and maybe they're in bed with the government, showing us things, kind of gearing us up, trying things out for size with us. But Star Trek was one of the first shows to talk about time travel. They attempted it. And it was the speed of light, and then you had to go around the sun and use the gravitational fields and all of this stuff. And then I accidentally, and I'm going to open up a can of worm here, and Ian's head will probably explode.
Nah.
But it was this huge online battle about who would win between the Starship Enterprise and the Millennium Falcon if it got into a battle. Huge battle on this thing. So who would win?
Well, I mean, if we really want to go down this rabbit hole, there's a lot of semantics. I think the Starship Enterprise is so much larger with a full crew of people on it, whereas the Millennium Falcon is a small ship.
Yes, it is
with a small crew. So
I would think the Enterprise would probably use a tractor beam and hook it.
That's what I'm saying. It just feels like
I was just very surprised to find this huge online. I was just looking at the time travel aspect of what television and Hollywood was, like Interstellar and other shows like that are fantastic. And then I just walked into this one going, really? This is where we're going with this? Come on.
Here's the internet that's best for you.
Yeah. Here's another one, the vanishing 1940 car.
Uh-oh.
Originally shared in a 1988 magazine article, this story follows two men who, on an early afternoon in Louisiana during 1969, encountered a vehicle from the past. While driving on a highway, the duo glimpsed an older vehicle. Upon drawing closer, they saw the slow-moving car's license plate, which had the year 1940 on it. Inside, they saw a woman in 40s attire and a child who appeared scared and confused. After gesturing to her to pull over to see if she needed help, the two were astonished to see that the car had vanished. Another driver who witnessed the event also supported their claim. Whether it's true or not, we'll never know.
Wow.
These are some interesting stories. The Moberly Jourdain incident. In 1901, two British teachers, Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, were visiting the Palace of Versailles when they allegedly had the most unusual experience. While exploring the Petit Trianon, if I'm saying that right, a small chateau on the grounds, the duo reportedly began seeing people in clothing from the 1700s. As well as buildings that hadn't existed since the same time period. One of the women claims to have seen Marie Antoinette in person, sketching on the glass. They published a book about their experiences in 1911 titled An Adventure. Skeptics have argued they suffered a shared delusion or witnessed a fancy dress party. Regardless, their story is still enjoyed today.
Yeah.
I mean,
it all kind of just feels like the crazy UFO sighting stories, where it's like they're really interesting stories, but I'm like, I have a hard time substantiating some of it because it's like I'm not saying you didn't experience that, because again you may have, but is it just some shared delusion that everyone's, you know what I mean?
The idea of people say, well, yeah, they had a shared delusion. I mean, I don't know.
That actually happens. There's mass hysteria. There's mass hypnotism. There's mass things that allow those things to happen. That's documented. I think that's more plausible than some of the other stuff.
I think the shared delusion thing is like when there is two or multiple people that can't get a good read on like the factual situation. Like for instance, if like both of you experience this situation that you don't have full interpretation to describe, but you both come together and like come to some kind of conclusion together and like piece the story, quote unquote, together into what you, and like equate it to like fact or like real life. When in actuality, you kind of just like coming up with a story, and again, like it's a shared delusion. I think is kind of what it more, instead of like having like just multiple people that are all out of their minds at the same time.
And you kind of
like,
talk yourself into actually believing the same thing.
Both Stone, like just as a hypothesis, both Stoney and I saw something that neither one of us could quite put our finger on, and I was like, I'm almost certain.
But it had whiskers,
and I'm almost certain, and it was Marie Antoinette.
Yes,
right, exactly,
right.
Yes,
that was it.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Is like maybe it's more so like that. Where you're trying to put concrete evidence to reality, or whenever it was, you guys just don't really fully comprehend what's going on.
There was something you said earlier, Jason, about the fact that the universe wouldn't allow something to change the future or the past. There was a movie about that. And I don't want to give any spoilers on it because it would be a great movie for your show too. But do you remember The Final Countdown?
I do.
I've heard of it.
That was a fantastic movie. I really can't remember. I used to have it all memorized, but since my little incident here with my brain, it was a Navy aircraft carrier.
Yep. Found
some type of a wormhole or some type of way to travel into the past.
Yeah, it was it was just kind of randomly.
Some storm, ion storm or something, and they went back to the day of Pearl Harbor.
Whoa.
And basically, they're like, okay, we're sitting here on, at the time, the greatest weapon system in the world, and now we're back 50 years. Do we want to really stop the Japanese from attacking Pearl Harbor? And basically, as soon as they decided, hey, we're still Navy, we're still got to do this, the wormhole came back and stopped them from actually intervening in.
Wow.
Well,
I thought that somebody must have been a play off of that.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Well, if I recall the movie, there was very much a heated discussion.
Right.
About what would happen. How would that change the future if they did that?
Right.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Would America then never enters World War II?
Right.
A whole divergent timeline could form from that.
Changing the course of history, literally.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. You think about that. So America doesn't enter into World War II, and who knows then what happens with if the Germans are not having to deal with the American war machine at that time. The
Final Countdown.
Great. It was a great movie. Great movie.
Oh, it was a good movie. Kirk Douglas. I can't remember all the stars in it, but it was. I
love the ending.
Yes.
We have a lot to talk about. So,
because you don't see the ending coming.
No, you don't.
You really don't see the ending coming.
You don't.
Cool stuff.
They just don't make movies like they used to.
Not like that. That was a good movie. Here's one.
I had to get on my phone and start because I couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah.
And it took me almost like 10 minutes to find out the whole thing. And
Victor Goddard's Flight. Here's one. Y'all might like this one. In 1935, Air Marshal Sir Robert Victor Goddard was flying towards a disused airfield in Scotland. He flew into a strange storm with yellow clouds before descending back into view of the airfield. Somehow, the abandoned airstrip was now in use, with mechanics in blue overalls servicing yellow trainer planes. The storm came back, however, and Goddard returned home. 4 years later, what he saw came true. RAF mechanic uniforms changed from brown to blue. Trainer planes were painted yellow, and the airfield was reactivated, complete with a new kind of plane he'd seen from the air. The Magister, first flown in 1937. Did he have a vision of the future, or did his plane somehow travel through time?
Wow.
It's an interesting story.
It's weird, yeah.
There's also the famous story of the pilot that flew through the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah.
I was trying to pull that one up because that one was...
That's the one where his instruments weren't working.
Correct.
And
Everything
he kept
he
going
got.
east. Yeah.
I find it funny. Here you had this weird fog. Yeah. He also went through the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And he experienced a time like 100 minutes of time in the future that he lost.
Crazy.
So, yeah. What was that other movie that kind of dealt with that? Was it maybe I'm thinking of something else. The Tommy Knockers?
I don't know.
Stephen King? Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
I don't know. Yeah, the crazy thing about like being a pilot and weather and all that kind of stuff is like the big thing from what I've learned from reading stuff and looking into like, pilot stories, because I'm interested in doing all that kind of stuff, is whenever you hit like a bout of weather like that, don't trust your eyes, because you'll be upside down or turned around before you know it. Like, you have to trust your instruments in those moments like that, and
until they stop working.
Well, but a lot of times they're supposed to be. You're supposed to check that beforehand. But a lot of times, like in that moment, whenever you have like your instruments, like as far as like heading and speed and all that kind of stuff, that's what you're supposed to focus on, because what's around you is obscured and it's hard to, like, there's no reference for like where you are in space and what's going on, and that's a big situation where pilots don't focus on the instruments and end up in a bad spot or turned around, which is scary in and of itself.
They do have I don't know, when people say this, I mean, who am I to say they didn't experience
Oh
that?
yeah.
I mean,
right. And that's why I always try to I feel like I take that skeptical approach, but I'm always willing to be wrong, because at the same time, I don't know. I didn't experience that. And I feel like if I was in a moment like that where I'm experiencing something crazy, I'd probably be like, well, this is crazy. And I have no explanation for this. So yeah, I don't blame anyone for, trying to, again, even in the hysteria thing, like we're talking about, is like I was trying to grapple with what you're seeing or what you're feeling, because you're like, none of this feels, quote unquote, we saw something or I saw something that's not, right. You can't really explain. And it could be something that is, in the perfect circumstances, able to be described as something else. But whenever you're, panicking or scared or, don't have all your faculties, like, things can be.
I see something here, Project Pegasus. Have y'all heard about that?
Yes.
I don't think I've heard of that one.
If time travel does exist, and many believe that it goes right to the very top of world governments, in Project Pegasus, we have probably the most famous claim ever made that not only are time travelers or chrononauts real, but that at least one former U.S. president is one of them.
Whoa.
One Andrew Basiago is the leading voice behind the Pegasus story. He claims to have been part of a highly classified U.S. program that ran through the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. It allegedly involved teleportation and time travel, as well as wider-reaching applications for such technology, including long-distance space travel. Basiago says that the initiative was run by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA. I don't know if y'all read about DARPA.
Oh yeah,
that's a can of worms there. Yeah. And that he was just a child when he participated. He says that most of it was built around what was known as the jump room, from which people could
I have heard of this.
Could dematerialize to rematerialize somewhere else in some time else. Easily the most bizarre aspect of Basiago's claims, though, is that he says that ex-President Barack Obama
yes.
was part of Pegasus too. Back then, Obama reportedly went by the name of Barry and was even sent to Mars on multiple occasions, all via the jump room. The White House, unsurprisingly, denied any of that was true.
Yeah. That's crazy. I've read a little bit about that, actually. I've heard about that, and it is kind of it is a bit out there from what I've seen.
No, I mean, it's...
Yep.
I mean, Who knows? I mean, it's easy to dismiss this stuff. It is. When it's fantastical, we can say, well, they're all just crazy. Right. And maybe they are, but we really don't know that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What do you, I guess, what are your thoughts on it? How do you feel about some of that stuff?
Well, I'm a firm believer. I'm very open to the idea of any of this stuff. I am very comfortable, and I've kind of gotten these conversations with people in my faith group, and just other people of faith that have problems with these sort of topics. I am of the opinion that I'm very comfortable living in tension.
I agree.
That I have faith, and I believe that ultimately there is a creator, and I believe in Christianity that God revealed himself in Jesus Christ. I'm also open to the possibility that we have not discovered all of our physical reality.
Right.
And just because we haven't discovered it, or it seems crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not crazy. We just have not reached that level of understanding yet of our own physical world.
Right.
And I'm not even talking about a supernatural world, which I believe that's something completely different.
Right.
Yeah.
Our own physical world is so complex that we only know a fraction of what we think is reality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And science are pushing those boundaries every day with dark matter, with antimatter, with black holes and worm, all these things that bending time, space, folding of space.
The thing that in that same breath that you're talking about that puts a lot of things in perspective for me, not only like faith-based, but also in the physical world, is like the idea of placebos, as well as just like studies that I've read on where like people, especially later in life, if they're told to like keep a positive mindset about that like they can do something, that like you, instead of like constantly like talking down to yourself that you're old, you can't do this, or I'm too old for that, or whatever. It's like getting rid of that and like thinking of yourself as capable and believing that, a lot of it being in the mind, how the physical body changes whenever your mind is oriented correctly. You can take a placebo, and if you believe that it's going to fix the problem, like your mind believes it, and therefore your body lines up with it. Like it's that kind of stuff for me that really like it puts into perspective how little I feel like I know about the world. When it's like, if you really put your mind to it and you, really believe it, like your body will line up. And that's just scientific fact, and for most people, I'm not saying it's always the case, but like it's even in that regard where it's like just the thought of that, where like just you believing something reinforces that, which like I said, like kind of for me at least, it strengthens my faith in some way, that kind of stuff. But at the same time, talking about folding of space and all this stuff, where it's like, for me, it just feels like a little one jump over to talk about the craziness of space and how vast and crazy it is, and I don't understand.
But we don't know anything about black holes and wormholes.
Right.
When you're looking, we're talking about gravity and energy and frequency. We don't know what happens if you get sucked into a black hole.
Yeah,
and we don't know how small they are or how big they are. We think we know some things because of some pictures and some satellites and stuff like that, but we don't really know what's out there. We have a very limited view on what we have on this planet, and that's about as far as we can go.
Right.
And sometimes, maybe something in that universe impacts us here on this planet, and now we can't figure out what it is.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's not there. It doesn't mean other people haven't experienced it. It just means that today we haven't experienced it. Because black holes are pretty fascinating just along, themselves, just the amount of energy and how fast they can pull something.
Right, and just the mystery of it all, of like where's it all going? What is it all doing? Like what? I know obviously it's probably
being sucked somewhere.
Right, yeah. That's just, it's crazy. But also, like, I mean, that's part of the world. Like you're talking about before about having, or even so simple as like just the ocean, the very planet we live on. We've talked about that on this podcast before, about there's a whole bunch of the ocean we don't understand anything about.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Well, I just pulled up DARPA.
Yeah.
Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, Forward to the Future, Visions of 2045. Did y'all see this?
No.
It's pretty...
What are they hoping? What is it?
I mean, they have different things that they're looking at here. Space, interplanetary, and interstellar travel, including faster-than-light travel, missions with permanent settlements on the moon, Mars, and asteroid belt, space elevators, transportation and energy, self-driving electric vehicles, improved mass transit systems, and intercontinental travel, flying cars and hoverboards, high-efficiency solar and other sustainable energy sources, medicine and health, neurological devices for memory augmentation, storage and transfer, and perhaps to read people's thoughts, life extension, including virtual immortality via uploading brains into computers, artificial cells and organs, Star Trek-style tricorder for home diagnostics and treatment, wearable tech, such as exoskeletons and augmented reality glasses and contact lenses. Material robotics, ubiquitous nanotechnology, 3D printing and robotics, invisibility and cloaking devices, energy shields, and anti-grav devices.
So just everything sci-fi related.
They're working on all this.
That's wild.
They're working on all this. Time travel technology will be close, but will be closely guarded by the military as a matter of national security. We already did this tomorrow. This was a few predictions inspired us to respond directly. So it wouldn't surprise me at all that they've actually mastered time travel. We just don't know it.
We don't know a lot. They're not telling us anything except what they want us to know.
Yeah. So DARPA is that would be a good show to do on DARPA.
Yeah.
There's a lot on DARPA.
That's
it really
crazy.
is.
Our friend Brandon could probably come back on that one.
Oh, I'm sure he would have a lot of information on that. Probably need to bring him back.
All right.
This is a fun episode, guys. I enjoyed it. I'm thank y'all for entertaining this, and
there's a lot of interesting
I
stuff.
hope our audience will get a little kick out of it.
Yeah. If you'd like to let us know your thoughts and feelings on it, we have an email address at it's getoffendedtogether@gmail.com, or you can give us those long form responses if you want to tell us something like that. Or you can go on the YouTube channel at Retrospect Pod, where you can give us a comment on this video or like and subscribe there. And again, you can follow us basically anywhere at Retrospect Pod. But anyways, until next time, thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone. God bless.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us today. You're the best. Peace.